Hello everyone and welcome to another video. The year is 1978. For the past 11 years, the BBC have been routinely wiping many episodes of Doctor Who's early years. This has not been anything unusual for the corporation, as they have done the same with many of their old TV shows. They have done this for many reasons, from not believing they had any further commercial value, to concerns over potential rights issues to repeat them on broadcast TV, and even sometimes just due to a lack of proper storage space. But thanks to longtime Doctor Who fan Ian Levine, as well as the recently appointed archive selector for the BBC Film and Videotape Library Sue Malden, attitudes have started to change at the BBC. The BBC has started to realise that their old programmes do indeed still have some form of value after all. In terms of Doctor Who, throughout the next 35 years, there would be many episodes that were previously thought to be lost forever, found and returned to the BBC. These would be returned from a variety of sources, from private film collectors to foreign TV stations. A couple were even allegedly found in a church basement at one point. From 1978 to the most recent missing episode recovery, as of time of writing in 2013, the number of Doctor Who's missing episodes would gradually be whittled down to 97 out of a total of 253 episodes that were made between 1963 and 1969. Whilst probably quite a lot of these 97 episodes are most likely lost forever, this hasn't stopped the BBC and fans from coming up with ingenious ways to watch these episodes. Surviving promotional photographs and off-air pictures, aka telesnaps, have been combined with off-air audio recordings made by fans at the time to create reconstructions. In addition, official animations have been made by the BBC for quite a lot of them. But what if things had gone differently? What if, in an alternate timeline, there never were any gaps in the BBC's archives? What if there'd never been any missing episodes? Now, before we begin, let me give a quick disclaimer. First of all, for anyone who isn't familiar with my what ifs, this is not me trying to start some kind of conspiracy theory that no episodes of Doctor Who ever went missing. It should be pretty obvious that I'm only speculating about what if none had ever gone missing in an alternate timeline. It's merely a fun, if frustrating, thought experiment. But I'm including this disclaimer just in case there's any confusion from any new viewers. Second of all, I know that the very idea that there would ever be a world or timeline out there where we had all of Doctor Who's episodes is a completely far-fetched and ridiculous idea. I know that based on everything we've managed to learn about how the BBC operated at that time, it's pretty much impossible that this scenario could ever work. But again, it's just a bit of harmless fun. Those of us who love discussing the missing episodes also love to imagine and speculate on the impossible. It's just human nature, really. With that, let's actually get on with the scenario itself. In order for this alternate timeline to work, there's only really one option, that being for the recovery of them to happen a lot earlier. If the recovery had started as early as 1971, we might have been able to have almost all of Doctor Who's episodes that had been produced and broadcast up until that point. You see, at that point, BBC Enterprises, the commercial part of the BBC that normally handled sending film prints of its programmes overseas, still had copies of almost every single episode, from An Unearthly Child to The Demons. That included the majority of the missing episodes. The one exception might have been the show's first ever Christmas special, The Feast of Stephen, but we'll get back to that later on. We'll say for the sake of this alternate timeline that the process of recovery does indeed start then. I'll leave it up to you as to whether that might have been down to an earlier intervention by Ian Levine or due to someone important at the BBC realising the importance of hanging on to such stuff. Either way, in this alternate timeline, rather than BBC Enterprises junking all their copies of Doctor Who's episodes once they were deemed to have no more commercial value, they were ordered from the powers that be to hang on to them. Again, I know it's really not very realistic, but it's the best way for this scenario to work, in my opinion. Sure enough, Enterprises would keep hold of their copies and would eventually pass them on to the relevant library when they were told to. The whole push to archive stuff in a much better and more orderly way would have to start earlier, in order for the copies to stand any chance of surviving in the library. But was about the odd one out that I mentioned earlier, was about the Feast of Stephen, the 7th episode of the Daleks' Master Plan. Well, that one's a bit trickier. You see, it was the only episode that was never intended to be sold and broadcast abroad. Due to its very nature as a Christmas special, it was purposefully written to have no relevance to the rest of the story. The feeling had been that the audience would hardly want to tune in on Christmas Day to watch a lot of death and carnage at the hands of the Daleks. They would rather tune in for something much lighter in tone and more self-contained. Therefore, when the Daleks' Master Plan was offered to Australia, the only foreign country that took an interest in buying it, the Feast of Stephen was omitted, as they would hardly be able to screen a Christmas episode throughout the whole year now, would they? So there was only ever one copy of the Feast of Stephen, and that was the one that had been broadcast on Christmas Day, 1965, in the UK. This copy was then junked just 2 years later, in 1967, in our timeline. So it would have had to somehow escape this fate in order for there to truly be no missing episodes of Doctor Who in this alternate timeline, which is probably quite a stretch, but hey, so is this entire scenario. Anyway, so now the BBC has all of Doctor Who's episodes surviving. We'll say that some of the original colour versions of some of Jon Pertwee's episodes might have still been lost, just to make this timeline ever so more realistic. Not that it's ever going to be very realistic, but never mind. But beyond that, Doctor Who narrowly misses having any of his episodes truly junked. How would this affect how we look at these stories in the present day? Well, it's impossible to say with any certainty, but I do think it's possible that there would be an impact, as fans, our alternate selves, might feel differently about these episodes. They might not rate some of them as highly as we do, or they might rate them more. What is certain is that if no episodes were ever missing in the first place, the show's early years might not have that same kind of atmosphere surrounding them. I mean, let's be honest, whilst it's sad that so many are lost in our timeline, it's still absolutely fascinating to discuss these missing episodes, and what they might have been like. But in this alternate timeline, there wouldn't be that same discussion, as fans would be used to being able to watch these episodes for decades, once they start being released on VHS in the 80s and 90s. It could be argued that they would kind of take these episodes for granted really, and if these fans saw how much fascination and mystique we treat them, they wouldn't really be able to understand. That doesn't mean that I think they'd be ungrateful, they'd just be so used to them. And beyond the episodes being part of the show's early years and featuring many important moments in the show's history, they wouldn't really resonate in the same manner. Ironically enough, whilst we all wish that we could still watch them all, maybe it's better that we can't. At least with us having so many missing, we've been able to try and piece what little remains together, and in doing so, discover more about how exactly the BBC worked internally at that time. Some fans have dedicated lots of time and effort in trying to track down any information related to them. We've had people search most of the world for any copies that might still survive. I'm not saying I'm glad they were destroyed, I'm definitely not. Like many of you, I'm sure, I wish they never had been. I love that era of the show and would do anything to see it in full. But I feel like that because of the fact that they were destroyed. If they never were, I probably wouldn't have that exact same feeling. I'd still love that time in the show's history and enjoy watching those episodes, but there wouldn't be that extra feeling of being grateful to have what little remains. Those episodes wouldn't hold any special meaning to any of us, at least not in the same way that they do. But I don't know, maybe I'm just talking nonsense here and some of you don't agree with my point at all. Which is completely fine and fair enough, by the way, but hopefully you can at least understand where I'm coming from. But anyway, so there's my take on what if there weren't any missing episodes. But what did you think? Do you agree with my take on it or not? And would you have done anything differently? Please let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, so thanks for watching, I hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it, so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. This channel currently has 1,522 subscribers as of time of writing and recording this video. But if we can get to 2,500 by the end of this year, then I will do another Q&A, where you can ask me whatever questions you want, just keep them polite please. Also please rate and comment below your thoughts on all of this, and please feel free to donate to my Ko-fi, link in the description, or send me a YouTube super thanks below, if you want to of course. And I shall see you all in another video. So until next time, bye bye!